Welcome to StratFu's Ulduar strategy video series. I'm Kith and I'll be explaining Mimiron. Mimiron is the last and the hardest of the keepers. Mimiron has 4 phases: Leviathan Mark II, VX-001, the Aerial Command Unit, and then all 3 at once as Voltron. Phase 1 needs to be tanked by a standard tank, and the raid needs to spread out about 15 yards from each other. We assign one range group to each section, and then have the healers spread out in those sections. He has a variety of abilities in Phase 1. Proximity mines drop in a circle around him. If you run over them, they explode for 16k damage. The napalm shell hits a random member of the raid and splashes damage to anyone within about 15 yards as well. It also applies a dot that needs to be healed. Shock Blast deals 100,000 damage in 15 yards around him. All melee need to get out, and the tank also needs to get out. Finally, Plasma Blast is a 30k burst damage on the tank. Healers need to be ready for it, and the tank will need to use cooldowns. We usually shield wall the first one, and then Last Stand plus Guardian Spirit on the second. There is not much more to say about Phase 1. It can seem overwhelming at first, but this is actually the easiest phase by far. So just watch and wait here. Phase 2 is coming soon. Phase 2 doesn't require a tank. Each group is assigned to a section and lines up across that section, making a big ring around Mimiron. We found that this makes healing easier by having people somewhat close, without having the heavy raid damage that comes if the groups cluster very tightly. Most of Phase 2, he spends his time casting Rapid Burst. This is a conal attack that can hit as many people as it's facing. As soon as Laser Barrage is finished, everyone needs to get back to places. Staying clumped will cause too much raid damage. He also pulses Heat Wave, which can't be outranged, and just does a low level of damage to the raid. Finally, he also has Rocket Strike, which makes crosshairs on the ground that you need to move away from in about 2 seconds. If you don't move out, you'll get hit for 1,000,000 damage. Hits for about a 3-yard radius. There's not much more to say about Phase 2. The entire raid just needs to be reacting quickly and paying attention. Phase 3 needs to be tanked by a ranged class. Warlocks work well and are easy to heal, but any class can do it. We all group up in one place, so loose mobs are easily findable by tanks. His main attack is Plasma Ball, which hits the ranged tank every 3 to 4 seconds for about 9,000 damage. He also summons 3 types of adds. The junk bots just get picked up by a tank and AE'd together at the end. Don't worry too much about them. The bomb bots explode for 10k damage, so a tank needs to get on those and just explode them. You can try to use them to kill other bots, but we never found it worthwhile. Assault bots can be tanked on 10 man. On 25 man, they also have an attack called Magnetic Field. This can be interrupted or dispelled, but fast reaction is critical. When an assault bot dies, he drops a magnetic core. This needs to be looted and then used to bring the range unit down into melee range so that everyone can attack it. We do this phase with hunters kiting the assault bots and warriors hamstringing or shaman frost-shocking to snare them. Whenever magnetic field is cast, healers dispel while at the same time rogues also try to interrupt. This ensures that the kiter never dies. The entire raid, including the ranged, kill the first assault bot. When it dies, the ranged switch to the aerial unit and we loot the core to bring the aerial unit down. The raid DPSs the air unit and another hunter picks up the next assault bot. As soon as the aerial unit goes back up into the air, the entire raid, again including the ranged, kill the next assault bot. Bomb bots are death gripped out of the area if we have a DK. Otherwise, a tank stands there and aggroes them to explode them. At the end of the phase, we AE on the transition to get rid of the junk bots. Phase 4 is the last phase, and you fight all the pieces at once. All of them need to die at almost the same time. The pieces have the same threat that they did in earlier phases. There is no threat wipe. So keep this in mind if, for example, your tank in Phase 1 dies in Phase 3. He won't have aggro when the unit spawns. The bottom unit needs to be tanked. It will still drop bombs and shock blast, so melee need to be very aware and run out. Your tank also needs to run out or use cooldowns to just eat them. The thing is that having him move in Phase 4 is very dangerous for the raid, so if possible, tanks need to be able to eat those shock blasts. The middle unit will spam Hand Pulse, which is exactly the same as Laser Blast. Also, he still casts Spinning Up and his Laser Barrage, but this time it's targeted on a single player. This can be a raid killer, because right now there's a bug where it will flail wildly out of control, wiping your entire raid if the original target dies, feign deaths, or vanishes for any reason, so it's very important to play very well in Phase 4. And finally, Rocket Strike is still going off, so watch for the crosshairs under your feet. The top is still using Plasma Ball on its tank and still needs to be range tanked. Luckily, it doesn't do anything else. Throughout all of this, the bottom unit is still occasionally dropping bombs. If he gets out of position, these may be dropped along the outside of the room, so everyone needs to pay close attention to what is happening. Remember, all pieces need to die at once. Melee can reach both the bottom and the middle sections, but the top can only be reached by the ranged. This final phase of the fight is extremely chaotic. Just focus on staying alive and balancing your DPS and you'll win, but expect to have a few deaths the first time you're doing this fight. One useful thing we've done is to have everyone use a mod like Quartz that lets you see your focus's casting bar. Set your focus to the middle section, and then you'll be able to see Spinning Up cast without having to wait for someone else to call it out on vent. Thanks for watching. Come to StratFu.com for more Old War videos, guides, and help with your problems. If you're watching this on YouTube, click on the link to the right to read the strategy.